the nuts!
Welcome back, hyenas, and before you ask, yes, this is how the show has always looked. There is nothing different, you just need to take your medication. GamerSupps is doing their Christmas in July. I don't know if you guys remember them doing this last year, but they're doing it this year. Basically, if you buy any number of tubs from GamerSupps, whatever tubs you want to, you will get some free gifts. If you just buy one tub, you get a free waifu cup, which is already like 15 bucks that you don't need to spend. If you buy up to 5 tubs, you get a t-shirt, a small merch item, a mouse pad, indoor large merch item, a night metal tumbler. So you get all of those things for buying 5 tubs if you want to. So if at any point you thought about buying some GamerSupps, the best time would be right now. There's a lot of stuff here, actually. Go buy some GamerSupps. It is over for gooning. Gooning is officially illegal. You're not allowed to goon anymore. That's basically how it works. Obviously, you can goon in your own imagination. You're completely safe to goon in there. Nobody can police what you're thinking of, you freak. However, if you need some sort of visual stimulus via the internet, that's becoming harder and harder to do as of lately. Steam and itch.io are pulling quote-unquote porn games. Critics say it's a slippery slope to more censorship. I saw this post on Reddit like a week ago that said that Steam has retroactively added a new rule against adult games because of credit cards, and it basically points to this under the Steam games rules and guidelines. They added this rule 15 retroactively that says the content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related credit card networks and banks or internet network providers, in particular certain kinds of adult-only content. So you could have followed all of the rules that Steam has set forth for posting your video game on Steam, which is all of the first 14 things. And as of like 2 weeks ago, they've added this new rule that says, oh, by the way, you also can't violate any of the rules that are set by like Visa or MasterCard or PayPal or your internet network provider. If Verizon decided 2 weeks ago that they don't want furry porn going over their fucking internet networks, well, guess what? You're in violation of that rule for that furry porn game that you made and downloaded 10 years ago. Now, obviously, this is sort of a big deal because, like, it isn't fair to retroactively apply a rule to stuff that's on your platform, A, but B, also, like, the reasoning just seems entirely egregious. Like, if Steam decided, or if we as a video game community decided that adult content in video games is bad or shouldn't be allowed or shouldn't be something you can just buy freely outright, like if everybody came to some sort of consensus on that, then we could be like, okay, maybe we need to have more limiting actions. Maybe you need to verify you're over 18. Maybe it shouldn't be on the main homepage. Maybe you need to do this and that, whatever. But the thing that has led to Steam basically nuking, literally hundreds, thousands of titles have been removed from Steam immediately, overnight, was the fact that Visa or MasterCard or whatever payment processor decided, hey, you know what? We don't either approve of or want anything to do with porn games, and therefore we're gonna strong arm Steam into removing it from Steam's website. They didn't say, hey, you can't allow PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, whatever to purchase these things. They didn't say, hey, they can only be allowed with Steam credits, and that way you're buying Steam credits and not paying for the game. No, they said, we're not gonna fucking allow you to use Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, whomever, allegedly, right? We're not gonna allow you to accept our payment processing whatsoever on your website unless you nuke every one of these 18 plus games, because we decide the morals for gamers. Now, obviously, the only information we have is that Steam is removing these 18 plus video games, titles, visual novels, and what have you from their Steam library, and they've retroactively added this Rule 15 that specifically states that you can't upload anything to Steam's video game database that interferes with the ethics, morals, rules, and processes set by their payment processors, right? So we're kind of putting A and B together. We're connecting like the most obvious dots ever, but like technically that's all we know, and we aren't exactly sure if that's what's going on, because it isn't like Gavin has gone out and made a PR release explaining why they're making these changes, right? But this isn't the only thing that has done so, right? We've also seen like Fansly and OnlyFans and Patreon all change their rules and guidelines around 18 plus content, nude, lewd content. Patreon used to be the go-to place for nudity. It would be the #1 place for like cosplayers and Snapchat artists, the Belle Delphines of the world, selling their photo sets and their private Snapchats and whatever. They used to do all of that on Patreon, but that has become less lucrative or less allowed at this point because Patreon has also tightened the ropes on what sort of content they allow on their website, and they are entirely a paid like photo sharing, video sharing. Like they're not even like video games where it's like children might be visiting Belle Delphine's Patreon or whatever, right? Even they, alongside Fansly and OnlyFans, have had to tighten the guidelines on what they allow publicly available, front-facing available, what have you, simply because of payment processors. It feels like the reason that Steam is pulling these titles is because of that same thing. PC Gamer article from January of this year, banks in Japan are blocking Steam payments for sex games, leaving Japanese adult game devs cut off from income. I remember at one point, I tried to subscribe to somebody on OnlyFans. It was for a YouTube video. This is going to sound like cope, but it was for a YouTube video, and I could not pay for it. I tried 2 different credit cards. I tried using like a sign up with a PayPal. There was nothing I could do to purchase this OnlyFans subscription because my bank or my credit cards or whomever just would not allow it. So it's like, yeah, they just fucking hate giving money for porn, I guess. Why do payment processing companies give a shit? Why do they give a shit? They're taking your money in interest and what have you. You're deciding, hey, I would like to use my money to purchase the titty. Why can I not receive the titty? Why is my credit card company getting mad at me, making such a fuss about this? I think, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's because it loses them money. Right? At the end of the day, that's an obvious answer, right? Why does a company do anything? Because it makes them money. Why would they not want to do something? Because it loses them money. I would imagine that adult purchases for like pornography, adult videos, not safe for work, I guess video games and visual novels, even OnlyFans subscriptions or Patreon pages to adult content creators. These things are probably the #1 most refunded purchases for a credit card company, right? I imagine people purchase it and then, I don't know, they fucking get post-nut clarity and then decide to refund it because it's like, hey, I have 30 days to refund this adult Steam game, and I've already jerked off twice. Why would I continue? Give me back my $30. And I imagine that ends up costing credit card companies a lot of money. That's my guess. Over here on steamdb.info, it tracks the history of games that have been added and removed and what have you. So if you skip to like 10 days ago, where it seems like this announcement was made, you can see that there is just a plethora of games that have been nuked. So if you wanted Cuckold Princess Episode Nadia, or Tutor Hypnosis 2, or Sex Loving Family Arissa After Story, I'm sorry to tell you this, but it's officially lost media. Now, I saw a Reddit post that basically said this is happening because a group of like 1,000 people in Australia are just like calling credit card processing companies and complaining about these things and are resulting in these new guidelines. And I was like, what are these guys talking about? I think what they're talking about is this website called collectiveshout.org. If you guys remember, there was a campaign a little while ago to have a video game removed from Steam. It was called No Mercy, and it basically, to my understanding, had like a graphic depiction of rape, and that was like a main focus of the game, and so they wanted to have it removed from Steam, and I believe Steam did remove it, and I think it was actually on Steam for a while, and nobody really cared, but then this activist group, anti-pornography, sexual exploitation group called Collective Shout put together a campaign, bitched out to Steam, and got the game removed, which is fine. I don't need rape in my video games, right? This is the same game, or the same campaign that seems to have It seems to have derived from that first thing. So it says here, following our successful campaign of getting rid of that game, we discovered almost 500 other games depicting rape, incest, sexual torture, and child abuse. We encouraged our supporters to email payment processors to call them to stop facilitating payments and profiting from these games on Steam. And 1,067 people, so like 1,000 people called payment processors, complained about the fact that there are 500 games on Steam that depict these things, and as a result they wanted Steam to make an action. As a result of our campaign, Steam has introduced a new rule. What is this link to? It looks like it's that same rule 15 that we started from earlier, that removes hundreds of rape and incest games. It actually looks like it has the same screenshot as what I just took a look at on SteamDB. Content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors. So yeah, it seems as though it's these guys that did this. Gamers defend their rape games. Predictably, misogynistic gamers have come out in full. Why do you need to say misogynistic gamers? Just say gamers. We know that's a self-identifying trait. Have come out in full force in defense of their access to rape games, sending the women on our team abuse threats, porn, and that's fucked up, using and distributing photos of our faces and encouraging us to kill ourselves across multiple platforms and via email to individual staff members. The irony isn't lost on us. So this, I don't know how much this has been covered. I guess there are probably people who have done like extensive videos talking about this when they originally tried to ban No Mercy, but this is a little bit of a tough one. Obviously, if every single one of those video games that were removed were completely focused around rape or child exploitative material or graphic depictions of said things, then it's like, I have no issue with that. Again, there's not a lot of that in Katamari Damacy, right? My issue isn't necessarily in removing things that they feel like might go a little bit too extreme in the direction of adult content, right? Maybe Steam, as the #1 marketplace for video game downloads in the West, shouldn't be the place where you can access exploitative rape simulations, right? I'm completely fine with thinking that way. What I'm not fine with is people who don't seem to self-identify as gamers or adult content enthusiasts deciding to police these things through brute force. Like a group of people sending emails to Visa, MasterCard payment, whomever, in order to say, hey, look how fucked up this stuff on this website is, and you're in support of that. It reminds me of, you guys remember, I forget what his name is, but like Emp Lemon did a video on that guy who was like showcasing that it's very easy to find sensitive, expletive videos of like young girls doing like gymnastics and shit on YouTube, and he called it the YouTube child rabbit hole or whatever, and basically position it like YouTube recommending you this sort of content. And he called for people to reach out to like YouTuber sponsors and payment processors or whomever. I'm gonna throw up an image of the fucking, you guys know the fucking guy, right? It reminds me of that, where like this dude clearly didn't give a shit about improving YouTube in a way that would get rid of this material and then make YouTube a better place. He just wanted to set as much gasoline and fire behind the guise of righteous removal of this inherently evil thing. Who cares how much damage I do to YouTube, YouTubers, advertisers, whatever? You did something bad, therefore let's do as much damage around me. I'm the one who's morally right. That's what this feels like. If the only thing you knew about this Collective Shout organization was the fact that they removed a game about rape from Steam, you might think, okay, whatever, doesn't seem that bad. But if you take a look through like their campaigns, like, I don't even know what to look at, like brands or wins or whatever, like they have listings of like 7-Eleven and a campaign where they tried to get 7-Eleven to stop having porn magazines in 7-Eleven. It's like, sure, are you nullifying the existence of like adult material that a child might see? Sure. Are you also seemingly policing the most minute, irrelevant shit in the world and calling it a win for society? It also feels like a lot of this stuff is like advertisements that people are doing for like cafes and like magazines and like clothing companies. Like every time somebody does something that's got cleavage or slight nudity or something in it, we're calling for the removal of it under the guise of like, what exactly? Like a bunch of these campaigns are, hey, the girls that are being sexualized in this advertisement or magazine or photo shoot or whatever look kind of young. Fair enough, right? But like some of these are like, back in 2015, they held a campaign saying that 50 Shades of Grey glamorizes domestic violence. I don't know if you're going to win that one. Evidently, they have a new campaign where they are urging for Elon Musk to ban all pornography on X, given that Elon Musk just turned his AI companion into a porn bot. I don't know if you're going to win this one either. But if it isn't clear to you guys at this point, Collective Shout effectively feels like an organization that, like, I feel like they just are going to do anything for attention. That's kind of what this feels like. Like, it isn't like they're getting a massive amount of funding in order to change and shape the way that the internet handles adult content for the safety of children. It feels like a group of people that have nothing better to do than to bitch about stuff, and they're using their targeted, focused, hey, if we reach out to credit card companies, changes happen, to do shit like what's happening on Steam right now. Now, Sumito, what exactly is the problem with removing games that have incest and rape and characters that look way too young? Like, if we're removing that stuff from the internet, isn't that better for everybody? On the whole, I'd agree. You don't necessarily need to have that much dark stuff when it comes to something like Steam, the front-facing absolute hub of where people are going to be downloading fucking Fortnite. I could have picked any game, and I picked the one game you can't download on Steam. Stardew Valley. You don't need to have hyper-realistic rape simulators being advertised right next to Stardew Valley. That's not how Steam works, obviously, but you can kind of see how it operates that way. The problem is that if you go about this in a way where you're emailing Visa and MasterCard and telling them, hey, look how fucked up your payment processing website is, we need to get rid of this, you end up overcorrecting. But who says it's going to be overcorrected? It has already been overcorrected. This Kotaku article, major gaming store delists all not safe for work games following pressure from anti-porn campaigners. This same campaign that has targeted the most egregious of rape, incest, whatever it is that you consider to be too much in an adult game on Steam, also targeted itch.io, a different, if you haven't heard of itch.io, it's just a website where you can download video games. It works like Steam, but it's a website, right? They've got a lot of visual novels, they've got a lot of foreign games, they've got a lot of adult games. There's a reason you might use it in addition to or different to Steam. But they, following the pressure from these same anti-porn campaigners, this Collective Shout website and or the payment processors whom they were emailing, rather than removing any specific number of games that they feel like violates this random moral or ethical guideline that they've set, have, it looks like, temporarily hidden any game that is marked as not safe for work. Any 18 plus game, including ones you have already bought. So you could have gone to itch.io and purchased a game that has nudity in it. I don't know, let's go with like The Witcher. And that is now removed from your account, even though you've paid for it, because of a rule that's been implemented way after you've already paid for the thing. Any not safe for work game. We don't need to think about why this is a bad thing. We can actively see why this is the wrong way to go about trying to accomplish removing graphically sexually violent material from Steam in the way that we're going about it. This is a stupid way to go about it. Here's the issue, right? The issue is that this effectively accomplishes nothing. For the most part, it accomplishes nothing, right? What typically has happened, like, this isn't the first time that like guidelines have been set in place when it comes to adult video games and what have you. For many years, well before, I don't know if you guys remember this or if you're a long enough, old enough of a Gooner, but back in the day, you wouldn't be able to download like adult versions of video games whatsoever on any major website. The only way to go about it would be to download a completely safe for work version of the game, and then you would install a mod or a patch that would make it so that it would enable the not safe for work content. That way you could download a perfectly, not child friendly, but like not expletive version of the game from a Steam or a mainstream website or what have you, and then on your own accord, download from like the developer's website or a forum or something, a mod or a texture pack or an alteration or a patch that enables all of that not safe for work 18 plus content from a different website, right? It's the pachinko machine money exchange of the internet that has existed longer than Steam has existed at this point, right? I imagine that if this stays in place, they will probably regress to something like that, where anybody making a porn version of a game will release the game on Steam, and you can pay $30 for a video game that opens the main menu and then does nothing, and then that's the thing that's released on Steam, and that follows all their guidelines and everything. It doesn't let you do anything, it doesn't let you play anything, but then you can download a mod, and mods aren't, you know, adherent to the same guidelines and everything because they're user made. And maybe that user is the developer of the game, and maybe you download the mod from his website, and that mod now allows you to play the full not safe for work adult version of the video game as God intended, right? That is almost definitely what is going to end up happening if this stays in place. But I don't realistically think this is going to be a major thing. Even with the Matt Watson situation on YouTube, while there was an overcorrection where payment processors made a big fuss, pulled out a bunch of funding, and YouTube put in more guidelines about this and that, it only lasted for so long before it inevitably went back to nothing because it was an overblown situation to begin with. I imagine this is going to be the same thing. Like this, Jojo, can you stop eating my Popeyes, please? Stop it, cat. I imagine this is going to be something that they are doing in order to appease the payment processors. The payment processors are going to do so. They're immediately going to realize that there was a whole bunch of money that they're missing out on. Like they're going to be like, hey, make these changes. And then, oh shit, we're making $3 million less this month. Why did we do that? They're going to remove the guidelines because why would you give up free money? And then everything's going to go back to normal. It's not like, sure, a group of however many people coming together to campaign and email these payment processors to make changes like this is impressive that they can do so, but it's not like they're gonna have any long-standing legislative changes that are gonna force these things to continue to stay the way that they are, right? But we don't know. At this point, we don't know. At this point, all we know is that a bunch of games have been pulled from the Steam database. Every single 18 plus game has been removed from itch.io, all because of this campaign by this organization called Collective Shout that I don't know if they're going to continue to apply pressure to make sure that more gets done, or if they've moved on to focusing on the impossible task of removing all pornography from Elon Musk's Twitter. But if you have some adult games that you've purchased on Steam or one day want to, it might be a good time to make an offline copy, lest the internet database completely remove them from your grubby, sticky fingers. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe so that you don't miss my videos in the future. Remember to pick up some Gamer Supps. They've got the biggest sale of the year running, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.